guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am I. My name is Joshua Ansley. So, yes, we are going to start a little journey on the chakras, a 7-week journey on the chakras, from like a basic standard understanding of the 7 chakra system. There's a lot of different systems. There are totally different ways of looking at it, different ways of viewing it, but there's, there is sort of a standard with the 7 chakra system. Some people have said to me like, oh, I don't believe in the chakras, I don't believe in that stuff. And I said my answer is that there's really nothing to believe in. It's quite frankly, there's electricity flowing through the body. And so there is energy flowing through the body. We know that scientifically. I proceed to some really fucking esoteric places, but it is actually all based in science and logic. Science is catching up to where deep spirituality has been for a long time with intuition, understanding outside of what the mind can perceive. We are very limited by our seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling to this small little fraction of what reality is. And if we get stuck into using those senses in order to draw conclusions from observable reality and only live in those conclusions, it's really ignorant actually, like to be only limited to what science can prove. The science itself says that it's limited. But science is, understanding that basically the chakra system, you open up the body and suddenly you see all these nerve ganglia, right, where are all in the centers where the rishis and the sages have intuitively known these chakra centers for so long, these energy centers through the body, right? So there's, electricity currents running through the body just like there are currents running through the earth because we are little microcosms of this earth, right? 70% water, made of the same elements, all this kind of shit. There are ley lines, electricity running through the earth, and where those ley lines cross are heightened centers of energy, vortexes, if you will, if you want to get esoteric. It sounds real fucking cool to say, like a vortex, like Stargate or some shit. But basically, those are where there's a heightened energy. So that's where a lot of sacred sites are built. Like a lot of shamans or different, priests that would be able to understand and feel these more subtle energies were able to intuit where these sacred sites were to have more, a heightened sense of energy where these lines crossed, right? So the same thing happens in the body. So you have these chakras, these major chakras, 7 major chakras, and they run all along up and down the spine, right? So the spine is the tree of life, right? And there is the serpent, the kundalini, who would be often perceived as, the devil or something like that, and it's bad. This is a trick. This is to fool you and to keep you out. It's actually the trick of the devil. Isn't it fucked up that the devil actually lives in the ignorance of religion? Be truthful to you, even though there really is no devil, but the ignorance is what really the devil is. And so the truth being revealed is that the serpent is an ancient symbol of wisdom, right? And that serpent that runs up the spine is called the kundalini energy, and it lies dormant at the base of the spine, right? And so where you have these chakras, these centers, and everything is energy, right? These are subtler things. Now, if it gets too esoteric for you, just understand that basically the way I use the chakras is an understanding of, it's a roadmap to self-awareness, right? And I'm huge into self-awareness because once we start observing ourselves, that's when we start to see that it changes everything. I don't want to talk about that too much because I want to stay on the chakras, but so, each chakra has a positive and negative attribute, a positive and negative archetype, and it correlates to different colors, which are vibrational frequencies. It's all very scientific. So when you visualize a certain color, it's a certain vibrational frequency. It does resonate at a certain frequency, like we know this scientifically, right? And that resonates different areas in the body. If you sing different notes, you're going to sing up and down the scale. It'll actually resonate in your body in different places, up in the head, in the chest, down in the belly. If you don't feel that, then take my word for it, it's very true. So there you can see the vibrational frequency is resonating in different places in the body. So this is all very much powerful work. This is where the chanting comes into play, and it's not just all like some crazy mystical stuff. But again, I talked about language at one point, and as limited as language can be in trying to describe the esoteric and describe the divine, the actual where we place our tongue and move the lips, and when the lips come together, the way it vibrates through the mouth, the way it helps vibrate through the chest when you bring the lips together, it's all powerful stuff. So there's different mantras and stuff that are used to help vibrate through the body differently and get the body resonating, right? So Muladhara is the root chakra. Muladhara means the base of support, basically, the root. Mula means root. And so it basically, I was talking about the archetypes. There's the negative archetype would be the abandoned child, and the positive archetype would be the nurturing mother, right? And each chakra correlates to a certain element, right? So the first chakra element is earth. It's steady, it's grounding, it's getting our solid foundation, right? So this is where the self-awareness comes in, and this is where, using this in terms of just as a way to get ourselves, if you weren't using the chakra system, you might not be talking about steadiness and stability in your life. You might just be like, I'm a fucking mess, or you might not even realize that you're a mess. You just might be going crazy and trying to make everything happen in your life and all this bullshit drama play. And when you realize that all that is still going to happen, all your emotions will still happen, but basically the way I like to work, there's many ways to work with the chakras. Some people will say just let it come in from the top and you work the top down, so you let the divine come down to the bottom. That's fine, that's beautiful. I think it's also very dangerous, because if you're not ready for that cosmic energy coming in, you can absolutely fry yourself out, basically, honestly. And then you end up in an insane asylum. And there's a lot of, you go to a mental institution and you'll hear a lot of really deep philosophical crazy shit that'll probably line up with the Book of Revelation and visions and stuff like that, because people were not necessarily ready. And like I said, my friend, I asked one time what was the difference between insanity and spiritual awakening, and he said manageability. So this is learning, the root chakra is the foundation of it all. So it's learning to manage ourselves. It is each one has a relationship, and the relationship in the first chakra is how we relate to ourselves. So while I do believe in reaching up to the heavens and then bringing that back down so it's heaven on earth, I also believe that we have to set a solid foundation for ourselves and work up. So we need to get a solid foundation to build the house upon, right? So the root chakra corresponds to our past, our conditioning, our childhood, all the fucked up shit that we don't want to look at and we think we probably dealt with and we got over, and we said, I just want to leave it behind. I want to rip the rearview mirror off the window and throw it out the side window and just move forward. And you are right about that. The problem is that it is so subconscious and we are so conditioned, and it's in our bodies in places. It is stored. The energy gets stored in the body. The data gets stored in the body. As you get scared, you hold things, you get tight, and as you start to open up and using asana practice and using poses that are specifically designed and help get into these different chakras, we open up the energy flow in that space so we can allow this space into our lives. Now, that being said, it's also not just about opening up all the chakras, it's about coming into balance in the chakras. So some of them may be overly activated, and that's why I'd say it's a little difficult to say, to let the heavens come in and down, because if you are overly activated through the Sahasrara, through the crown chakra, and you're not grounded in a stable sense of who you are, then you're gonna be insane. You're gonna be all over the place, and you're too floaty, and you're lifting and everything. So we need that stability, that stable grounding. I'm steady, I am strong, I am stable. Sharon Gannon from Jiva Mukti, apparently somebody had told me that she never uses grounding as an intention. And she's like, why would I want to ground? I want to elevate, I want to lift, and I get that. But, for those of us who have been in a mental institution, we maybe need to be like, no, I need to get some solid grounding. I need to walk like Ganesh, like an elephant. And that is, these are these strong, big, mountainous animals that are the animals of the root chakra. So Ganesh is the remover of obstacles, and you can use things like that, visualizing Ganesh, stomping through the jungle, and that steadiness. That's also really good for Manipura, the third chakra, but or maybe just picturing the steadiness and the strength and the heaviness and the weight of an elephant, and recognize inside yourself, feel that, because this is about getting us to being into a state of strong, stable steadiness. So the issues are, I always believe that you have to walk through the fire to get there. The only way out is through the fire. So a lot of us might be like, no, I've moved past all that shit. And if it's still so subconscious in you, if your life is like, I don't know why I have all this fear and anxiety, because the fear and anxiety is in this root chakra. It's abandonment, panic, dread. I mean, fears are one thing, but I have experienced panic and dread. And when we don't have a stable, steady grounding, and that if we didn't have a stable, really loving, caring, grounded childhood, if there was, you know, and that can happen in so many ways. Abandonment is not about living in some fucking atrocious, horrible, dysfunctional family. There is at every point, at it, damn it, everybody has a point in their life where they realize that they are on their own, where these parents, that whether they were amazing parents or not, they recognize the mortality in their parents, they recognize the flaws in their parents, that they are not gods. They are the first thing that we understand to be gods. So there is a fall from grace that our parents have in our eyes, and we realize, oh fuck, I'm on my own. And that can be a sense of abandonment, that can be a sense of panic. So a really strong thing to do to heal our childhood is to reach back into our ancestry, is to understand and heal. And there's a lot of forgiveness that happens, and that happens in other chakras as well. Everything coincides and crosses over. Because the survival mechanisms and the really lower base fundamental needs of humanity, of shelter, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Is we start with those physical base needs. That is basically the same thing. Like, we can't really ascend into higher levels of understanding and consciousness if our basic survival threat is there and we're not feeling safe. So most of us, because if we grew up in an unsafe space, or if we never healed those wounds of that feeling unsafe, it might not even come out until we get into relationships or we get into the world and it smacks us around and we have a fucking mental breakdown and we realize, like, why am I so afraid? There's nothing to be afraid of. There's no reason to be afraid. So that fear is something that needs to be healed, and that comes from going back into our childhood, back into those wounds, doing inner child work, and going back and healing those spaces. You know, a lot of ancestry work, like understanding that your ancestors, your parents, everything was doing the best they can. In class today, you know, I'm doing the chakra work through the classes now. This is going to be a long vlog, but is that I had everybody visualizing all their ancestors, all of history standing behind them, and all of their ancestors standing behind them, with their parents directly behind them, their grandparents, and this expanding out into infinity. And there's blood on their hands. There's blood on their hands, and visualizing all that blood being washed off their hands, all that shame, all that guilt, all those things they may have done being washed off their hands, so that behind you, you have your parents and your ancestry exactly as you would have wanted them to be. And feel that. So we can't change the past, but from this moment on, moving forward, we can absolutely change how we move forward relating to ourselves. That we relate to ourselves first from a healthy sense of love and stability and strength. Picturing that elephant or whatever it is. So there's meditations you can do, you know, visualizing a beautiful deep red ball at the base of the spine, right? And maybe visualizing, chakra means wheel, so maybe visualizing that ball spinning a little bit. You can visualize and just intuit where, if there's any dark spots on that ball, you can intuit and just feel them cleansing and going off. So look, if none of this is real at all, the placebo effect shows us automatically that we have such a powerful effect on our own healing. So if we just visualize these things and believe that it will work, it will work. Believing is seeing, it's not that seeing is believing. So you can visualize all those wounds, all those, if you picture any holes being mended up in that red ball, if you just picture holes, don't try to force it, but just allow there to be holes there and see what they are, and maybe sew them up, heal them up, see them closing up and getting back to a vibrant red, you know? And you may be picturing a vibrant red cord. extending down through the floor of the pelvis, down all the way into the center of the earth, stabilizing. The chakra is all the way down through our legs. It's our stables, our trunk, you know. So there's a lot of great poses for this that are all about getting stable and steady, which are like the tree pose. So many of the poses overlap, you know, like they'll be used for so many of the different chakras. So as long as you just get into a practice and start doing it and working through the body, you'll be stimulating all the chakras, and over time it will help. And there's a mantra for each one. Lam is the mantra for the root chakra, Lam. And when asked and done any research on where they came from, what that means, it's divine intuition by the rishis, by the sages. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't really work it for me. But you know what? I've seen enough proof from doing other stuff, and you know, enough things that the sages were right about, that I'm like, lam, 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 lam. So you can use that, repeating 9 to 108 times. You want to do be careful. I think, you know, ultimately the bottom line is, with some sort of like cognitive behavioral therapy, if we know that we had a really disrupted childhood, you can reach out to me, and there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of work that you can do. You shouldn't necessarily do it alone, especially in these basic grounding the lower 3 chakras. It's a lot of difficult. All of it is really very, very difficult, but there could be a lot of fear and a lot of things that we shouldn't be going it alone, a lot of pitfalls and a lot of traps. So anyway, that's 16 fucking minutes of talking about Muladhara chakra. So I think that's enough for this vlog. They're all going to be pretty long for the next 7 weeks, so I hope you enjoyed it. I wonder if I missed anything. There's so much I could talk about this, for so many different ways to approach it, so many different aspects to look at it from. But so I'll bring it up in other ones as it goes along. So in Lakesh Lakin, I am you, you are me. Namaste. What? Too much?